little bit about how to work with Wiki pages. Everything that's going to be in your collaboration site is a Wiki page, not a web publishing page. So that makes it a little bit different than what you did with your outward-facing websites. A Wiki page is fundamentally different in that it's very easy to add content to a Wiki page. Oftentimes, all you have to do is open the page, say you're going to edit the page, click somewhere, and begin typing. You don't have to do anything special in most cases. In order to do this, I want you to follow along, and I want you to just create a page. You learned how to create pages before, so this is the afternoon test. I want you to create a page somewhere on your site. You can even create a new subsite if you'd like. That will give you a new page, whichever you prefer. Just remember that we're going to be deleting this when we're done. So if you're creating a page, you're going to be deleting the page later. If you're creating a subsite, you're going to delete that subsite later. And the reason for this is so that you can follow along and do some of this and have some fun along with it. So let me know when everyone is ready. I'll walk around and see if anybody has any problems, raise your hand or whatever, but we want to make sure everyone's ready to get started. Create a page or a subsite so that you have a page. Because creating a subsite is going to give you a default page, and that's fine. You thought there were going to be no tests, right? Yeah, wow. This is how we can tell who was out at the bathroom at the wrong time.
Yeah, we already know that.
Yeah.
The analytics now, and I know is it just in search?
Does everybody have a page that we can work with? Okay, once you have a page that you can work with, in order to edit a page, you have a couple of options. One of the options is you can come up to this little gear, circle, whatever it's called, settings. It used to be called Site Actions. Don't you just love Microsoft? They basically take a button called Site Actions. It starts in the upper right-hand corner in 2007. In 2010, they move it over to the left side in the upper corner. Then in 2013, they move it back to the right side, but they, just to confuse you a little bit, they take away the words and they give you the funny-looking gear, and they just call it Settings instead. So anyway, if you click there, you can click Edit Page. The other option is there's this Edit button right underneath with a little pencil. Either one will allow you to edit the page. Once you edit the page, what you're going to see is a couple of areas, and depending on the page layout will determine the areas that you have. Now, don't worry if you only have a single area. Each page will be a little bit different. I'll show you how you can get different areas. This one has a top area, which is actually considered to be a header section. Then it has 3 columns in the center. And then it has a footer section in the bottom. And all of these constitute places where you can put content, put text, put images, put links, whatever it is that you want. And I'm going to focus primarily on some of these in the center just to be able to put some text in. And if we wanted to just type in text, all we'd have to do is just start typing. Okay, and I didn't get a space in there, but it's hard to see the characters from way back here. The main thing is, all you have to do is click, start typing. When you save the page, that text will be on the page. So from that standpoint, you don't have to put a special web part on the page first. There's no content editor web part that has to be there first, and then you start typing in it instead. You just start typing right in the text area itself. So coming back into this text area, I'm going to get rid of that text I just put in. And what I want to do is I want to put a link to a new page. And I'm going to actually call it, this is a link to the grades page. Now, if I were to just type it in that way, which is the way you would have done it back in the traditional way of SharePoint 2007 and even 2010 for web publishing pages, what you'd have to excuse me, what you have to do at that point is go back and select the words that you wanted to use as the hyperlink. So let me show you what I mean by selecting the words. You'd have to come back and, let's say we wanted grades page to be the words that we wanted to select. And then you would come up to insert. And in the insert ribbon, you would click on link. And then you would either select from SharePoint, which would allow you to navigate through your SharePoint site and find the page that you wanted to refer to, or you would select from address, and you'd actually have to type in the address, such as https://www.ocps.net. You just have to type the whole thing in. But that's basically the way you would put a link in before. What I'm going to do here, a little bit different, let's get rid of the text I have here for now. I'm going to start by putting a double square left bracket, and then type the text, and then close double square left bracket. So it'll look something like that. Now when I save the page, and I can go up to the Page tab, click Save. Oh, I didn't get rid of it. Let me go back and change the name. I did this demo yesterday and I didn't delete that page. And go back, edit. Instead of being grades, let's see, we'll call it attendance instead. So I'm calling it attendance page, saving it. The link part is underlined with a dotted line. The other one came up as a regular hyperlink because I didn't delete the page from yesterday, which would be what you would get if the page already existed. Just happened to have one from yesterday, but it's not what I wanted to show right now. So in this case, it says it's a link, but it doesn't exist yet. That's why you have a dotted underline. And it's also a different color. It's green, not the reddish color of the other one. So what do you do now? Since it doesn't exist, all you want to do is click on it, and you'll get a little dialog box. Pretty much all of it shows there. And the dialog box says to add a page, which doesn't exist, you want to create it, click the Create button. Well, in essence, that's what it says. I didn't read it word for word, but the cool thing about this is SharePoint recognizes that the page didn't exist. That's why I did the dotted underline. And then it also will give you help creating the page by just clicking on the link. So I'm going to click on the Create button. It's going to go out, create the page, and take me to that page and put it in edit mode. That's a whole lot easier than the other way of creating the links, where you had to go out and create the page manually first, then link to it, then go back to the page, edit it, and so forth. So it's a little bit faster to get to it. Now, once you have this page, it's giving you a default layout, which the default layout is just a single square box. And you can put anything in that square box you want. Again, you can put the text, you can put links in, you can put tables, you can put pictures in, pretty much anything that's available. If I click on the Insert ribbon at the top, you can see you can insert all sorts of different things. You can insert tables, pictures, videos, other links, web parts. And of course, you can do all the formatting that you could normally do with text if you type text in. But what I'm going to do here is show you, well, before I show you something about the page layout, do you remember, or how many people are even aware that in the old days of doing web publishing and creating web pages, that the way to create a fancy page, when I say a fancy page, anything other than a single column of text, was to go out and put a table on the page, and then you would then take some of the cells, merge some of the cells, maybe merge a couple columns or merge a couple rows, and you would create areas. And within those areas, you would put individual pieces of content, whether it was text or whether it was images or whether it was a table, and you would use those to basically define a layout for your page. Well, you can still do that, because that's why you had the option when I showed you here in the insert ribbon that you do have this table option. And if you select the table option, it will give you a grid, and you can define how many rows and how many columns you want in that particular table. And yeah, you can always add more columns, you can always add more rows or delete either of those. But what I want to do instead is back in the format text, which in a way it's a strange place of putting it. I would have almost thought it would have appeared maybe in the page ribbon, but it's actually on the format text ribbon. There's an option over here, text layout. And when you open that one, it's going to give you a series of options, and I covered some of them, but basically you can get the idea. You get a series of options of different page layouts in terms of areas where you can have text. The default being the one column and the one at the top, but you also have some two column options, including one with a very small sidebar. You can have two columns with a header, two columns with a footer, three columns with a header, and three columns with a footer. So you have a couple different options. I'm going to go with, let's see, which one will I pick today? Let's go with two columns. So now I have two boxes, and I can work in either one. Let's say for now I want to make sure that I have a way of getting back to the home page. So to get back to the home page, I'm going to say return to, and I'll put the double square bracket. And last time I did the double square bracket, I kind of jumped over. I'm trying to get the mouse so it doesn't keep pulling down, so I can leave it go. The top part of this pop-up list shows me all the pages that currently exist on this particular site. And you can see there was a page called grades page. That's why it didn't like that. Or it liked it before because I thought it existed, but it wasn't what I wanted to use. But this basically allows me to create a link to any of the other pages in my current site. This is not going to help you when the page is on another site or a sub-site. It's only pages within the current site. So if I wanted to go back to the home page, I would click on home, and it's going to immediately, when I press enter, let me go back to where it was, because I tried to expand it and that moved everything around a little bit. Because it didn't understand the expansion. Just remember what it looks like. I'm going to press enter, and the reason for that, where it says home, I'll explain why that comes up a little bit later, but I'll just say for now it's really an alias for that particular page. So I'm closing off home with a double square bracket, and that's really my link. It's going back to the home page, which just happened to be called home.aspx. So if I save this page, and I click on home, which now home will be just a normal link because it does exist, and it's actually a visited link because I've been there before. It'll take me back to the home page. So I can go back and forth between these two pages now. Okay, so that's great. You can go from one page to another. You can create new pages pretty easily without having to go through and create the page manually. Just create a link to the page and then let it create it. What else can you do? Well, we'll go back to edit the page. And there are a couple of other options that we had. And I'm going to start off by saying, let's look at our documents library. How do I want to say this? I'm just going to do a double square bracket to begin. But this time, instead of getting page names, what it's showing me when I do the double square bracket, I don't want to focus on the page names. I want to focus on those last two items at the bottom of the list. These two down here that say list colon and view colon. Those are not pages. Those are actually other command options. And the difference between the two, both of them will give me some information about my lists or my libraries. And when it says list, that doesn't mean it only works with lists. It's a little bit confusing at first when you look at those two names because it's not obvious what the difference is between the two. The way I tell people to remember it is every list, every library has a default view. What the default view is going to show you, it's a view, is going to be a list of those documents or a list of the items. So if we use the option view to show all of our documents in a library, I'm going to go down and select view. And I pressed enter. I'm sorry. Go back. Just click on view. Trying to go back and forth between expanding and showing things, and I'm clicking on the wrong one sometimes. Sorry about that. But when I just type in view or select view from that list, what I'm getting here is a list of all the libraries and all the lists in the current site. Not other sites, not the parent site, not the sub-sites, only the current site. So these are all lists and libraries. And as far as SharePoint is concerned, a list and a library are the same thing. The only real difference between the two is a library has an attachment, which is the actual file. So a document library is nothing more than a list that happens to have as an attachment the actual document. But it's really internally treated the same way. So if I'm going to be viewing, I want to select one of the lists, and the one I want to select is going to be My Documents. So I come over and click on My Documents. Then it's going to give me another list to pick from. Right now, this list only has one item in it called All Documents. That's the view name. Now, in this particular library, I only have one view. I'm going to show you another way of doing this against a list, which there are going to be multiple views, and you'll see that there'll be multiple items listed here. So if I select All Documents as the view that I want to use, and then press enter, because that's all I need for that particular reference, it's going to put the close angle brackets or square brackets to close off that particular link. And if I save the document, and then click on All Documents, it basically opens up a page that shows my document library with all my documents. Okay, so this is kind of a standard way of displaying a library or a list within your web pages. There's other ways of doing it. You can actually go and you can add the list or the library using web parts, and you can put it on a page. But this is a lot faster. Again, just like creating a page, going through some of the abbreviations that they have with wiki pages, this gets you to where you need to get a lot quicker. Now, the interesting thing about this, as opposed to the other way of creating a page with a web part, this page doesn't really truly exist. It's a virtual page. It doesn't actually exist out on your site. It's created on the fly, and then once the person leaves it, it's gone. Whereas if you did it the other way, you'd actually create a physical page and it would always be there. So going back to my page, what are some of the other things that we can do? I said I would show you what it looks like with a slightly, well, no, let's wait. Let's do the list separate. One other thing we can do with a document library, let's show an individual document. To open up an individual document, see my senior exit survey data. Open the square bracket. I happen to know that there's a file called senior exit survey data that's going to be also in my document library. But this time, instead of using view, because I don't want to look at all the items that are in that particular library, I want to go to list. And quite honestly, if I were Microsoft, I would have called it item, because we're going to a specific item in the library or an item in a list, but they didn't ask me. Then go to my documents. And now what it's going to show you is a list of all the documents that are in that library. Remember the other way of doing it when I chose view, it showed me all of the possible views that were available for that library. When you choose list, it shows you all the actual items within the library. So I'm going to come down and select the senior exit survey. I thought I selected the senior exit survey. It didn't take it. Let's try clicking again. That's really bizarre. The mouse has no idea where I'm at. Okay. I'm just going to try selecting it this way. I selected the one underneath and maybe it has an alternate name. Okay, so I'm going to select this one. And it puts the name of that particular document in. If that's all I wanted to do, pressing enter closes it off with the square brackets. So it's got the square brackets at the end. And if I save that and click on it, I'm going to get a message first telling me that I'm trying to go between a server and a local machine. This is normal for Microsoft. So if anybody that uses at your school, gets a little concerned when they see this message, this is normal. This is Microsoft trying to protect you when you're transferring a file from two different machines, between two different machines. So yes, it's okay in this case. It'll open up Word. It needs to know who I am because I'm going to a server that's secure. And when it first opens up the document, it's going to be read-only. It tells you at the top in the header. But there's also a button to say, do you want to edit this document? It will always try to open things up as read-only first. And then only if you're sure that you want to edit it, you'll go in and select Edit Document. So you go in, edit the document, make any changes you want. When you're done, you want to save it. You would go back to File, Save As. And you'll notice over here on this side under recent folders, I'll go underneath it with the mouse and we'll see if we can expand it out. And it only shows part of it because there's more than it can show, but it's basically going out to the same folder that I was in SharePoint. So Word does recognize the SharePoint folders. It treats them as if they were folders just on another drive. So if I click on that option, it's going to give me the standard Save As dialog. However, that Save As dialog has the documents from my SharePoint site. So we're inside Word, but Word is actually reading the library in SharePoint. And I can come down and I can either restore or replace the file that's already out there with the same name, or I can change the name, click Save, and then close Word. And then if I come back into the site and say View Site Contents, and then look for my documents, there you see Senior Survey Test Report 3, which is the one that I just saved. I started off from 2 and then created another one. Does that kind of make sense? So when you have a link to a specific document that you want someone to open, you can put just a reference to that particular document. If you want to give them a reference to and that's using the list option. If you want them to see the entire library, you would use the view option and define which view you wanted to use. And you can have multiple different views with different filters, different sort orders, different columns that are being displayed if you have different metadata. But that's what the view option is for. And then they select which file they want to work on by clicking on the file. But if you want to limit it to they can only see certain files and open certain files, you would use the list option. Now going back onto this page, I'm going to go to the other side, to the right side. And here I'm going to display my project. And in this particular case, I'm not going to a page. I want to go to a specific project and open a specific project. So I don't want to use view because view is just going to give me a different view of a project. Now you can use that if that's really what you want, or you could go to specific tasks within the view, within the project. Well, let's stick with the project in its total first. And that's under My Tasks is the name of the project. This one has multiple views. That document library that I had before only had one view, and that was all documents. This particular task list has several different tasks. Notice there's an all task, which is the default, and then these other views were defined. If I go to the Gantt chart one, which is kind of the interesting one, I'll press enter, I'll leave it at that, and save it. When I click on it, it's going to take me to that task list, and it's displaying my project. Now this project has only a couple of tasks in it. I think there's only 4 tasks. Shows a timeline across the top of when those tasks are occurring, how long the tasks are. There's a list of the tasks here. There's a couple of milestones also listed that are included down here. And then you have individual Gantt chart bars, which is another way of showing the information. The advantage of the Gantt chart, and it's not shown here because this is an old example that was created during the pilots. That's why it's January. When we created this one, it actually had some different colors in, because what you can do is you can define a % completion in the task information. And this is not a project management course, so I'm not going to go a lot of detail into it. But when you define a project completion, let's say it was 50% complete on this large task, you would be somewhere around here where my mouse pointer is right now. But let's say, for the sake of argument, so we're somewhere around January 19th if we were 50% complete. But let's say instead we know that today's date is really January 25th. Would the project be ahead of schedule or behind schedule? If it said 50%, the project was 50% complete, and the 50% complete mark was on, and that means as of today it's 50% complete, and that was on January 19th as far as that bar is concerned. But today's date is really January 25th. Is the project ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Okay, you're behind schedule. Anytime that the difference between the two colors, between what is complete and what isn't complete, occurs to the left prior to today, whatever today's date is, means you're behind schedule. Anytime where that separator between the two colors is to the right of today's date, you're ahead of schedule. If you just happen to be right where today is, well, then you're right on schedule. So the point being that if you develop a small project and you want to keep track of that project, you can do it within SharePoint. You don't need Project, you don't need Microsoft Project, you don't need Project Server. Yeah, there's some interesting tools that, they add some additional features, but you can do simple project management right from within SharePoint. And maybe that's all you need. use the tools that you have as best you can. Once you exhaust all the capabilities of that tool, you might have to go to another tool, granted. But at least take a look at it and see if it makes any sense to use it. So in this particular case, this is a pretty simple project management tool. Gives you a nice display of the information. It's not your standard list like you would expect for a lot of other lists, but it's pretty much what you need to get started doing some simple project management. If you have questions about using it, maybe come to one of our open labs. I don't even think we cover any of this in any of our videos yet. The task list. I didn't think so. So come, if we don't get time to do it, come to one of our open labs if you're interested in using something like this. The only other thing I want to show with this particular page is everything that I've done so far use default names. All the names that are shown up here were the default names of the page, the default name of the view, or the default name of the actual document itself. But you don't have to stay with those. You can make the names anything you want. So if I go in and edit this page, and I'm going to change one, but it's the same method for any of these links. Doesn't matter which one you want to change. You want to come down and you want to look at first the link, and there's something that it does by itself on some of these things that not always obvious. You see it says all documents and then a vertical bar, all documents. Or in this other one, it basically starts here, senior survey test report to DOCX, vertical bar, senior exit test report to DOCX. Everything to the right of that vertical bar is the name that gets displayed on the screen. Now, for whatever reason, it doesn't do that when you have a page reference, but it does do it whenever you have any type of list or library reference. But it will work for the page as well. So if I wanted to come in and change this last one, and the reason I might change it, I don't like the DOCX at the end. I don't even want the number 2. I just want it to say Senior Survey Test Report. And I want to come up here where home is, and I want to change that one. And I'm going to make that return to top level. And then save the page. I changed a little bit too much because I lost some of the information. Yeah, I really messed that one up, didn't I? Let's create it all over again, and then I'll redo the editing. That was list, my documents, and then we originally went to this file. I'm just going to put the vertical bar here because I didn't save it yet, so it didn't do the automatic update. Then in my double square bracket. Okay, so at this point, it still didn't like something. I don't know, I guess I'm not typing very well today. Where'd the page go? Come on. I did not click on anything. I really can't type today. Try it one last time. I don't know why this first one is underlined. But there's my survey if I click on the link portion. Close Word. And now instead of saying return to home, it says return to top level. So basically my point is that working with the wiki pages generally I think is a little bit easier than working with the old style publishing pages. I think once you get used to it and get used to the double square bracket to begin something, and the fact that you can link to a page that exists, you can link to a page that doesn't exist and then automatically create it. Go to a library, go to a list, show individual items. You'll find that you'll be using it a lot more frequently. And of course you could just type things in any of the text areas. You don't have to have a content editor web part anymore. Just type it in. If you want to put in a table, you just insert the table right inside the text area. If you want an image, you insert it right in that text area. Again, you don't need all those other web parts. The only time you need those extra web parts if you're doing something special. But a lot of times you can just type it directly into the page. You don't have to go through anything else. So that's basically in concept what the whole idea of the wiki pages are in the site. I encourage you to go back and try playing with the page. If you want to keep the page that you created for now so you can go back and play with it, that's fine. If not, remember to delete it. If you created a page, you want to only delete the page. And to do that, you want to go into the little gear thing and show all content. Select for pages, it's probably site pages, and then find your page and delete it. For instance, I'll show you what I mean by that, because there's a couple pages I can get rid of. Click on the gear, go to site content, come down and find my site pages. And I had the grades page from yesterday. There's no obvious option to delete here. Yeah, there's some other ways. There's a couple ways you can do it. If you show files and show the ribbon and then click the checkbox in front of it, and then you can come up to delete document. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is you can click on the ellipsis, the three dots. When you click on the three dots, you get another dialog box. It's not even there. You have to click on the ellipsis a second time, and then you'll find delete way down at the bottom of the list. And when you delete there, it's the same effective thing. So it's a few more steps going that way, but you do have two ways of deleting a file. So if you just created a page, that's one way you can delete the page. If you created a subsite and you want to delete the subsite, you have to go into the subsite itself. I'm not going to delete this one because I do want to keep it, but you basically would come into the site settings, and under site settings, I'm not even going to hover over it just in case, but it will prompt me, ask me if I'm really sure. But under site actions, delete this site. So you do have the power to delete sites. You know that from earlier this morning. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Okay, if you delete the site, sorry. At least if you delete pages, you can recover a page pretty easily. There are some ways that we can possibly recover a site. I'm just not sure if they're set up on this particular site for collaboration. I know we can always go to a backup and get it, but you start doing that too often and you're going to get our administrator a little bit ticked off. Yeah. Because it takes some time and effort to bring something back from a backup. And if we have to, we do, but we prefer if you can try to recover it first on your own. So anyway, that's in a nutshell what wiki pages are like and why it's a little bit different editing pages here than on what you've been doing for your existing school outward facing sites. Any questions?